Welcome, Acolyte. Today, or right now, I am reacting to Capcom Final Response and Pros. Basically, Monster Hunter Wilds gets updates from the game developers. It's good, it's fine. I don't know which updates, by the way. But I
Capcom
also
has
found...
finally addressed the
Come on, don't do this to me. Dark Hero 2. I don't know who this is, or don't remember exactly. I remember the character, but that's all. And at the end of the day, let's just see what he has to say. What buffs, debuffs, blah blah blah. Maybe he's good at it, maybe not. Or good, I mean, he's probably good at it, but maybe I will like it, maybe not. Who knows? Let's start.
Capcom has finally addressed the feedback over Monster Hunter Wilds, and they're doing a lot of amazing things. We're talking about improvements to the performance of the game, the hit stop animations, a lot of quality of life features, and
The hit stop animation, I don't even remember what this was, to be exact. No, I remember, yeah. No, it felt like shit in Word. It felt like shit.
a lot more options, as well as some actual gameplay changes to the weapons. And yes,
What am I talking about? It's fine. It's fine. I'm confused. I just woke up and instantly got in and made a video I am confused. Just don't listen to me. Acolytes.
Glaive mains, you can finally rejoice as you are actually now able to stay in the air for a long period of time. There's also some key interviews where Ryozo Tsujimoto, along with other developers and producers, mention a couple of new features coming into the game and how some weapons are going to be nerfed in the future. And these are all things that naturally we can all expect to see from the second beta for Monster Hunter Wilds. I've compiled a lot of information from many different interviews, and there is a lot for us to talk about, so let's get straight into it. So all of this new information comes from a new round of a gameplay preview, where many different outlets were able to play a different build of the game compared to the one that we...
By the way, I'm so happy that they changed the insect glaive to actually jump around again. I think it's only 3 times, but hey, better than 0. And still fun, because the identity of the insect glaive was you're airborne. That was the identity. Not the pheromone shit. They could take it out and the insect glaive would be still the insect glaive.
We played during the first beta test that now featured many new monsters that were not available for us to hunt, along with some new cutscenes, new weapons and skills, and so much more. And as such, we now have some gameplay as well as the intro cutscene for a few different monsters, such as the Temnoceran Lalabarina, the large spider monster.
I love this fucker. This is so beautiful. I just cannot stop gushing about this spider thing. It's just nicely done. I love it. I love this. This design is just beautiful.
That looks like a rose and inflicts paralysis, and you can find them in the Scarlet Forest. We also got the intro cutscene for Chemetris, the brute wyvern that is essentially a fire chicken that you can find in the Windward Plains. And of course, we also got the intro cutscene for a fan favorite returning monster, the Congalala, which you will also be able to find in the Scarlet.
The farting thing. I always found this one disgusting. It's... I'm gonna be honest, I found it extremely easy to fight, just disgusting, that's all.
Forest. And hey, as a small bonus, we also get to
give the Tigrex back instead of this freaking fat, ugly thing. Damn.
See the intro cutscene for the Woodwoods, the adorable Linian tribe that you will come across in the Scarlet Forest. That being said, and before we start talking about some of the new skills that have been revealed, the two biggest pieces of feedback that were given to Capcom after the Wilds beta test were, for one, the game's lackluster performance, especially on the PS5, and all of the Dorito monsters that...
Can you see this? This looks a bit like a chocobo. Not entirely. I'm not saying I want to copy Acolyte, but it looks like it.
That we got to see on PC as well, and secondly, the lack of the hit stop animation. Well, you'll be glad to hear that at the very least performance has been greatly improved, as it was reported by pretty much everyone that tried out this new build of Monster Hunter Wilds that the game ran a lot smoother, though given that the playtesters were playing the game on a PS5, the improvements were basically stabilizing the game at 30 frames per second. So here's hoping that the performance is also going to be a lot more consistent on the PC side of things. Though I am going to miss those Dorito.
Oh, the PC side of things. This could be a disaster. because no, and I don't think so. I don't think so because the Monster Hunter devs always made sure that a Monster Hunter runs pretty smoothly. I didn't complain in words at all, or didn't. I also started a week later, so I'm not sure about it. Let's just hope for the best, because at the end, let's just hope that it will be fine.
Monsters. Now as for the hit stop animations, this was something that was very noticeable for a few select weapons with some of their biggest attacks, where they just lacked impact and didn't feel as satisfying to pull off. Thankfully this has actually been addressed and fixed into the new build of Monster Hunter Wilds, and apparently you're going to have the option to turn off said hit stop if you don't like the way that these animations look, so having the option to turn them off or on depending on whatever you like is fantastic.
And I'm gonna be honest, I think that most high-level players will play without the hit stop. Because yes, the hit stop is extremely satisfying, as he said, because if you chunk a weapon in a body and it just stops for a really extremely short time, but it just feels good, you know, you feel the impact, you feel that you actually carved a freaking wound in the effing gigantic monster. But without the hit stop, it goes quicker. And even this extremely short time could maybe, potentially, with a giant maybe, be a bit better because, well, you could get more hit, maybe more hits out. I don't know, I'm not sure about it. But this is a theory that I have right now. So I think that most high-level players will play at least at the end or after a while without the hit stop, just because of the performance. If I'm actually correct about it, I have to look it up again. Yep, it's the exact thing. Yeah, actually, sorry, I'm just a bit confused about the hit stop thing, because for some reason I have two things in my mind. One was the actual hit stop when somebody hits you, and for some reason I thought that's it, but no, it's not. It's the impact, basically the impact you get if you hit something. So yeah, okay, let's just continue.
Now, a very curious detail as to why they actually essentially got rid of the hit stop animations for a lot of attacks, or at the very least drastically reduced them into the first build of Monster Hunter Wilds, was actually due to player feedback from when Monster Hunter World first released. As it turns out, a lot of people that tried the game didn't like it very much, but now we get the beta for Monster Hunter Wilds and everyone is complaining about it. It's honestly an all-around pretty funny situation, and it's great to see Capcom taking in all of this feedback and improving the game before launch.
And by the way, as I said, maybe, probably, on a high level, people will turn off the hit stop. Probably. Not sure, but if it goes quicker, it goes quicker. Because the hit stop it's an extremely short thing, but you know, still. These days, min-maxing to the end.
And of course, another very big piece of feedback that was given to Capcom was that a lot of Insect Glaive mains were simply not happy with the state of the weapon. They either felt that the controls were a bit too clunky, that the close gameplay loop of the Insect Glaive in Wilds wasn't very satisfying because it was all about getting that rising spiral slash and getting the extracts back to keep on spamming it, and what seems to be the biggest deal for a lot of players, the fact that you were now not able to bounce back in the air after doing a vaulting attack. Well, thankfully, as you can see from the gameplay in the background, you are actually now able to do so in the new build for Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, you're not able to bounce back into the air 5 times like you could in Monster Hunter World, however you can do it up to 3 times, much like you can in Monster Hunter Rise, which I think is a great compromise. Now, truth be told, the aerial playstyle of the Insect Glaive has never really been all that great in terms of damage performance, but for a lot of people, especially those that picked up the Insect Glaive in Monster Hunter World, for them that was the identity of the weapon.
I would disagree. This wasn't the identity of the weapon, or maybe it was, but you know what it was, or what it is? It's fucking fun. It's freaking fun to fly through the air and actually bounce off monsters and just be in there, airborne, and still making some damage. Not a lot, but hey, that's irrelevant. It was fun. And a lot of people just forget that games are for fun. Acolytes, if you're playing this game, it's fun. A very, very, very extremely small percentage of people actually have fun playing it on an extreme level. I would say like at least 90% of people don't give a fuck, they just wanna have fun. And the insect plate, airborne fun. You literally can take out the entire pheromone thing with the insects and people will still play the insect glaive because you are airborne and it's fun.
And in some way they felt betrayed by the changes that Capcom had made to the insect glaive in Wilds. But again, they have heard our feedback and have implemented this into the game, so even though the weapon now has a bigger focus on the grounded playstyle, with it being a lot stronger, insect glaive players can rejoice because the aerial playstyle is back to what it was. Me personally, I see this as an absolute win because I already love the insect glaive from the Wilds demo, so honestly I couldn't be any happier about this. In my opinion, this bodes very well for the future of Monster Hunter Wilds, as we are about 3 months away from the release of the game, and the developers are putting in the time to listen to our feedback and correct the things that need to be changed or the community feels should be improved upon. Contrast this with the rest of the AAA gaming scene, where a lot of developers seem to disregard what the community is saying about their game, and they simply try to make a quick buck out of their consumers. Instead, Capcom is taking the long road approach, where they try to focus on the community and how they feel about the game, and to try to make everyone's experience as good as possible.
Yeah, and by the way, do not forget, if you disagree with the other AAA games, you're a Nazi. Yeah. That's what you get called, by the way, so including me. Don't worry. Those are just freaks.
Now there are a couple of caveats here which I want to talk about, with one of them being their approach to how they will be nerfing weapons in the future, because they have actually confirmed that they will be doing this. As when asked about how the weapons felt to the community, Tokuda-san revealed that in particular the lance, the switch axe, the insect glaive and the sword and shield will have some significant differences in the finished game. On the other hand, weapons like the longsword and bow are too easy to use and overpowered. We will be adjusting the damage range so that they are more balanced compared to other weapons, while making sure that they feel good to use." End quote. Now, truth be told, given the amount of new things that the longsword is capable of doing in Wilds, I kind of expected the weapon to be somewhat nerfed on the game's release. But at the same time, I felt like the longsword didn't really outperform the other weapons by all that much. In fact, from all of the speedruns that I saw from the demo, a ton more weapons were performing much better than the longsword in terms of how fast you would be able to hunt a monster. Now, of course, you shouldn't balance the game around speedrunners. I don't think that is a good balance benchmark, though I do think that they should be still taken as reference, with ultimately how long a hunt takes on average for an average player. I think that would be a much more valuable criteria on how to balance the game. Tokuda-san also goes on to add that, quote, "Our policy is to increase the strength of weak weapons rather than to decrease the performance of strong weapons," which I am totally in favor of. You know, one of the biggest surprises that I saw in the demo was not only how fun the gun lance felt, but also how much more powerful it felt as well. And I hope that that is the approach that they take once the game fully releases, because while yes, it is a PvE game and we should look for some semblance of balance, I also wouldn't want the developers to end up nerfing everything and making the game too stale and not have some crazy fun things simply for the sake of balance.
That's correct. That's totally effing correct. It's always the number one thing, at least for me. It wasn't balance in Monster Hunter, it always was fun. Always. And it's, in my opinion, most of the time better to... It depends on the game, of course. But if we're talking specifically Monster Hunter, it always is better to actually have a weapon that's strong, just keep it strong and make the other weapons as strong as this weapon. It's just, in my opinion, fun.
Now, having said that, the second caveat that I would like to add comes from the idea of removing things that have been a staple of the franchise. As I'm sure a lot of you are already aware, Monster Hunter has been moving into the direction where the hunts become a lot more streamlined. What I mean by this is that no longer do you need to track a monster, in Rise you don't even need to bring cold or hot drinks with you, gathering resources is a lot quicker, and there is a lot less emphasis on sharpening your weapon, as you can do it safely on top of your sacred and it only takes a couple of seconds. Well, to add to that, Tokuda-san has stated that they are apparently removing some of the flinch caused by players attacking other players. Quote, "The reason we implemented explosions that can blast you away in Monster Hunter in the past was because we wanted people to play the game while taking into account both the positive and negative repercussions this can have. However, we perceive that players' attitude towards friendly fire has changed, and this is one of the reasons." End quote. And they even go on to mention Ryozo Tsujimoto-san, who is a notorious hammer player, one of the weapons that is able to launch other players into the air by simply performing their combo. Me personally, I never really cared too much about being knocked away or flinched by another player, as there has always been a way for you to remove this effect. If you want to play in
Nah, I'm a bit different there. Because you can have, if specifically for randoms, by the way, if you're in a team of friends, no problem there. There just never was. And Santos just did it because it's fun. To kill the motherfucker that stole an item in front of you and just gathered it while you were fighting. Yeah, I know. But no, it's specifically for randoms. You could just have one asshole that destroyed the fun for everyone else. And I'm gonna be honest, I was then the asshole with, of course, the freaking hunting horn that just went behind him and just freaking slapped him in the face until he either disconnected or was like, okay, I'm gonna behave right now. And the bosses after that, the bosses just went way quicker. But the first thing you had to do was you have to show your effing dominance with the horn.
Multiplayer but not get hit by your friends, then make sure to equip the skill flinch free. I am aware that some people in the community hate the fact that you need to equip a skill to not deal with that, but it ends up being a very minor part of your build, and me personally, the way that I see it, I very rarely play in multiplayer unless I am maybe farming or helping someone go through a quest, as I always try to clear all of the content in the game by myself first and only then dive into the multiplayer. And when I do multiplayer, the hunts end up being so casual because the game simply becomes a lot easier in multiplayer that getting knocked back by a teammate because of a mistake simply ends up being an amusing thing, or if I end up getting carted or hit by a fireball because of it, then it's a funny clip and we all end up laughing. This also reminds me of the topic that especially when Alatrion and Fatal is released, I saw a lot of people online complaining about random teammates and how they would knock them back and flinch them, and also unrelated to that as to how some random teammates just weren't very good at the game and they would end up carting and failing the quest, to which I simply say, then why are you playing with randoms? Again, the only multiplayer that I do is with people that I already know, unless I am doing a stream where I'm playing with viewers. If you're going into multiplayer to clear a quest and expect everybody to perform, I'm sorry to tell you, but some people just don't take the game seriously, some people just are not very good at it, and that is fine. Ultimately, I feel like this is one of those
even though he said this right now, I still think that there is a difference between not taking the game serious and just being a total asshole about it. And if you go in a multiplayer situation, you still should give your best or do your best. Now, am I saying that you will always get every win you got? No. But there is a clear difference between someone who just doesn't give a fucking ogre ass and someone who actually tries. Because someone who actually tries, they will make it most of the time, and even if not, you have a fun time after that. So in my opinion, it's always a bit of a difference. As someone who actually played after a while a lot of multiplayer, because I am just like him. First of all, I try to do everything solo. If I make everything solo, I know I can maybe carry the team in the hardest situation, and then play multiplayer. Just most of the time, if I have my equipment, just to help people out and maybe get a bit practice in it. But at the end, there are just people that totally just don't give a single F and try to ruin the fun for others on purpose and just don't give a fuck. And for those people that actually don't give a entire free, like zero fucks about the game, what's fun about this? Why do you even play if you just don't care at all? Why are you even playing? It just doesn't make sense to me. Because as I stand, I want to have fun. But also having fun, for me at least, is to a certain degree that I actually try my best and try to, well, I mean, just try to finish the hunt I have. And if I want to troll a bit or try things out or, well, then I just go solo and try the things out that I try. If I want to bullshit around, I call my friends and then bullshit around. It's honestly baffling to me that people are at absolute zero interest in finishing the hunt, like literally zero interest of finishing it. Why even join at that point? I mean, if you're bad, that's something different. But if you try your best, then it's fine. But not even having the interest in finishing the hunt, I don't get it. It's just I don't know how somebody can have fun with that.
Or aspects of the Monster Hunter series that doesn't really harm the player base as much as Twitter and Reddit and other online forums make it sound like. And going back to the lack of hit stop animations on Monster Hunter Wilds that we saw in the beta, the reason why we lacked those hit stop animations was precisely because there were a lot of people complaining about them when World released. So even though I have been mentioning all of this time that it's great that Capcom is listening to feedback, maybe some of the feedback should not be listened to and Capcom needs to be a little bit more selective about it. Either way, I am very happy about all of this, with the exception of the apparent removal of friendly fire, but again, it doesn't really affect me too much, but I am curious to see as to how the player base is going to react. Now, the skills that I mentioned that we saw that are going to be present in Monster Hunter Wilds actually include significant changes to well-established skills, which are certainly going to have big impact on how you play with different weapons. With one such skill being Critical Draw, which apparently in Monster Hunter Wilds will be boosting the affinity of your weapon whenever you perform a draw attack by 50% at level 1, 75% at level 2, and 100% at level 3, which is much higher than the affinity that this skill granted you in both Monster Hunter Rise and World, which I believe in Rise it capped at 60%, so that is a big buff. The other skills that were revealed to be in the game from these new gameplay previews were Stamina Thief, Focus, Punishing Draw, Guard, Offensive Guard, Quick Sheath, and apparently a new skill for the hammer. Honestly, just knowing what skills are going to be returning doesn't really matter too much until we get the complete list of all of the skills, though the one that I am the most curious of is seeing what they are going to do to Weakness Exploit, which this skill ever since it was introduced has been a bit of a problem as a lot of builds tend to revolve around it, to the point where Capcom even ended up nerfing it several times. And hey, among all of this, we also got to see some additional motion capture for how they're going to be recording some stuff for Monster Hunter Wilds, and all of this looks pretty good. I was already a big fan of the way Capcom did the cutscenes for—
Oh, that's beautiful. You can actually color your mount. I didn't. It's beautiful, nice. Fuck the character, damn the mount. The mount.
For Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, and seeing the motion capture for that game, especially the Rajan cutscene, was pretty funny, and I'm looking forward to seeing them release more of those videos online because it's always a fun watch. I think that Capcom knows that they are very well poised to become one of the biggest releases of 2025. Monster Hunter World is by far their biggest game ever, and it has sold well over 20 million copies. And despite being over 6 years old, the game still has a ton of people playing it, with a 24-hour player count on Steam ranging from 70 to 80,000 players, and
that's insane, by the way. This sort of a game, like a specific, and Monster Hunter, don't get me wrong, it's a game that a lot of people like, but it's still a niche game.
given that the Monster Hunter Wilds beta player count far surpassed the player count that Monster Hunter World have received, this game is definitely going to blow up, and so Capcom is making sure that players have a lot of good stuff to look forward to. We're likely going to be getting more information about Monster Hunter Wilds before the end of the year, especially with the Game Awards show being around the corner, so there is a lot to be excited about, so I will update you guys on whatever information we end up getting. There's also the conversation about a second playable beta that we will eventually end up getting, because while it has not been confirmed, given how much more time we have between now and the release of the game, and the fact that Capcom tends to release a second beta test with an even harder mission where you can hunt the flagship monster of the game, that is what I would expect to see sometime around January as we get closer to the release of Monster Hunter Wilds. In the meantime, let me know how you guys feel about all of this and how excited you are for Monster Hunter Wilds. I have a lot more content to make on...
I am excited. By the way, Acolytes, I am excited for two things, exactly two things, and it's the hunting horn that has, as far as I know, or had overpowered attack buff, and daggers. Daggers were also always fun to me. But is it this? Acolytes, I would say good night.